hey, we finally have some leaves and you know, some shade so I can film in the middle of the day and not, you know, have all these horrible shadows and everything. So welcome back to another Bait Finesse reel review. Now, this reel review is a good example for a couple reasons. One, it's a great example of why I don't just do a review shortly after I get the reel or just like take it out one time. I've been fishing with this reel since February, so I've got about 4 months with it. And honestly, I completely loved it when I first got it. It's not truly marketed as a Bait Finesse reel. You know, what I'm talking about is the SLX DC XT. So this is a digitally controlled reel that can cast down to 2 grams. It might be able to go a little bit lower. I didn't bother trying to test it any lower than that because, quite frankly, if I was going to cast lures that light, I'm going to run a lighter setup overall. So this is like 195 grams, which is 50% heavier than the lightest reels on the market, like the Aldebaran or the Dark Wolf Ultra, or, you know, there's a lot of reels in that 135 gram weight class. So while it surprised me getting down to 2 grams, that was enough. But the other thing about it is, what I started finding is, as I just was fishing and I wasn't worried about testing any particular products or anything like that, this reel did not end up being on the kayak. It didn't end up on a rod for a little while, actually. This was just sitting on the workbench for a few weeks. It's a great reel, don't get me wrong, but I really do think that for me, the initial part was the novelty. It was the first time I'd used a DC reel. You know, that whine, some people love it, some people hate it. It does have a great feel. It's a little bit different material than Shimano SLX or the BFS. I do like the way it feels in hand. It is heavier. It's the heaviest Bait Finesse reel that I'm using at this point, and you can feel that. That could be part of it. You know, I don't want to say it's fatigue. I mean, it's 60 grams for crying out loud. But when you're fishing for 5, 6, 7 hours and you're just casting, that can make a difference. The thing is, though, is it does sacrifice a little bit of distance for that digital control. I've run it mostly down on basically 1, the lowest setting. There's no setting lower than that. I've been running it with 8-pound Daiwa J braid, and it's been doing great. I've only had a couple backlashes with it. Both of those were on the same day, windy conditions, and I was really trying to, it was when I was peacock bass fishing, and I was trying to make longer and longer casts because I was trying to get a little bit more stealthy. These fish the water was pretty clear, and they were definitely on high alert. And so there's a couple times when I you know, made a long cast and I was trying to go like between the pilings of a bridge, and I hit one of the pilings, and so it was like halfway through the cast instead of even towards the end. And you know, I got backlashes, but they both came out. The one was significant, but it wasn't that bad. Oh. You know, when you're trying to make a really tight cast and you hit the wall instead. One really nice thing about it is it's got a deeper spool. So this has about 100 yards of line on it and still throwing 2 grams. So I'm sure it would throw lighter weights if I only put 50 yards on it. But then this is a traditional spool, so the spool would be like half filled. And I don't know, I just don't necessarily like the way that looks. As far as spec wise, you know, this is an 8.1 to 1 gear ratio reel. It's got 12 pounds of drag. A lot of the Shimano Bait Finesse reels only have 8 pounds of drag, so that's pretty nice. 7+1 bearings. You know, not the most. The Aldebaran has 10. I think the new CQ BFS has 12+1, but the SLX has 5+1 and the Curado has 7+1. So, yeah, it's very similar to that Curado platform anyway. And you can see here on the box, it says of 12 pound, it'll hold 100 meters. And I'm running 8 pound, and that's mono. I'm actually running 8-pound braid. And so it fit 100 yards on there really easy. That was not a problem. You know, I sort of like the color combo. Probably the biggest issue for me is I like to target big aggressive fish on Bait Finesse setups, on ultralight setups. In fact, this would be pretty much the heaviest setup that I use. This is the X Pride BFS, the medium light though, so it's rated up to like 15 grams and only down to 5. You know, I was throwing swim baits and crankbaits on this. It has been one of my favorite rods for a long time, and I like the way the combo works. But because I'm targeting bigger fish on lighter lines, on lighter setups, the drag system, it really needs to have a clicking drag, and this does not. And I know there have been a couple times when maybe I had the drag set a little bit too light or whatever, and I didn't realize it at first as I was fighting the fish, just because you couldn't hear it. I think that's a great feature on BFS reels, and most of the best reels have them these days. For some reason, you know, and it probably has a little bit to do with the DC. The SLX DC XT 70 HG, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's a lot of letters in there, right? It doesn't have it. And that is probably the biggest reason that I stopped using it as much. That being said, if you want a DC reel, bait finesse or not, I think this is a great option. I paid $250 for it from one of the Japanese shops. I don't remember, actually, it might have been Japan. It'll be in the initial unboxing video. But you can pick them up on eBay, brand new, from Japan for like $215, $220. I'll have a link down in the description where you can just click on that link and it'll take you right to the eBay search. And if you buy from that link, it actually helps the channel, so I appreciate that. It's a really good reel, and what it did for me was, you know, it kind of satisfied my urge for, you know, trying out a DC reel. Really where I've gotten to is that once you get a true BFS reel dialed in, you're rarely going to have any problems with it anyway, and you're going to be able to get more distance. It's lighter. It just, overall, the performance is better than a DC reel for a lot of the finesse applications. I was one that for quite a while, I said, hey, it would be great if we could get a DC BFS reel. And essentially this is it, even though Shimano doesn't market it that way technically. But you know, so it's like sometimes, you know, you got to watch what you ask for. So I got it, I tried it, and it's like, okay. Like I said, it is a good reel. It's just, I don't think I'll be keeping it. I'm actually at a point now where I have so many rods and reels, it's like I got to thin the herd a little bit. And I don't think the SLX DC is going to make the cut. It's good. It does a lot of things well, and it does have the digital control, but quite frankly, I don't need it. I don't. The one reason I might keep this reel, and I still haven't decided, is because of the line capacity. You know, it does hold 100 yards of line, where nothing else that I own holds more than 50. If I want to fish, you know, deeper water, there's one lake that I fish that you know, it's over 100 feet deep, and so, you know, but I'm not normally fishing that deep. You know, I'm fishing, you know, the ledges and in the shallows. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's a good reel. It's just nowhere near one of my favorites. So here's the thing. If you want a DC reel, if you want to do finesse fishing with a DC reel, I'm guessing this is your best option. It's $250 versus $400 or more on a lot of the other DC reels from Shimano. So from that perspective, you know, it's better. It will cast down to 2 grams pretty easily on the right rod. You know, it won't on a medium light rod, but you put it on a essentially an ultralight rod that's rated down to 1 gram, it'll cast 2 grams just fine. It's not bombing at, you know, 90 feet or anything like that, but I'm probably 45 to 50 feet. It was a good fishable distance.
2.18 grams, so we're basically down to 2 grams at this point.
It's a little AliExpress bait. But again, 2 grams. It just wasn't as far as an actual bait finesse reel would cast. So, you know, that's the SLX DC XT. This is the 71 XG. Like I said, I enjoyed it. It gives up a little bit in areas of performance. So from casting distance, smoothness is pretty good. So that wasn't so bad. But the casting distance and the weight, and then just the drag performance, the fact that it doesn't have a clicking drag, that just basically kills it for me. You know, hopefully this will help you if you're thinking about it. I think it's a great reel. It's just not great for the way I like to use them. So those are the reasons I wouldn't recommend it. But otherwise, I think it's a great option. It might even just be a great option as a nice entry-level DC reel if you wanted to do that. And like I said, just throw the finesse stuff out. I think this will get you great distance on heavier baits, and it was for me. You know, when I was throwing 8 to 10 grams, this thing it gets it out there. And again, no problems unless you cast it right into a bridge or something like that. So SLX DC XT, I'm not saying you won't see it on the kayak or in some upcoming videos, but I have a feeling you're not going to see it for long. I have other reels coming in as I'm working on other stuff. I just think this is going to get less and less time, and eventually it'll probably end up on eBay as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.